us about your journey and how you ended up working for the Alamo Trust.
Sure. So I've actually spent most of my career in the private sector at H-E-B, the grocery company that most people know. And I left the company probably a decade ago to go work for the owner, Charles Butt, personally doing some of his education work. I've always been passionate about education. I come from a family of educators. My grandmother, my mother, my older sister are all proud Texas educators. And so I went to go do that, and literally out of the blue, I was working on my doctoral degree and got a call from a recruiter about the Alamo Trust. And at first I said, well, I don't know what that is. It sounded like a bank to me.
Yeah.
And so here I am 4 years later.
Okay.
So 4 years. I looked on your LinkedIn. You have a picture of you and your sister Cindy.
Yes.
When y'all were here, do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean,
no.
I mean, when you were that
we
young.
were little. We were little. I always knew
That's
my father.
the cutest picture.
I mean, my father was a lieutenant colonel in the Army. He was a West Point graduate who served 5 tours in Vietnam, and he was always very passionate about history. So when we would go to visit my grandparents in Corpus Christi, I do remember stopping here.
And going to see it, yeah.
Going to see the Alamo, because that was a must. You must do that. But I love that picture because in the picture, my sister is dressed very cute, very girly. And I have this huge windbreaker on and look like...
It looked like the winter time.
Literally. I was like, what am I wearing?
Cute,
and why did my parents let me wear that?
Strong-willed child. He was like, I'm wearing this.
Probably, you're not wrong.
Going out the house.
So tell us about the mission of the Alamo Trust.
So the mission is literally to preserve this treasured historic site. Most importantly, the church in Long Barrack, our most well-known architectural artifacts. We're in the process of restoring a sense of reverence and respect to the site, helping visitors to understand the full 300-year history of the Alamo, not just the 13 days of the siege that happened in 1836. And also just becoming a world-class educational institution for both students, visitors, and teachers who use the site.
How do teachers use the site?
So several ways. So it's interesting. Our mission from an education perspective is to serve students and teachers in equal measure. And that means students of all ages, from pre-K all the way through college age. For teachers in particular, we offer a lot of professional development. And that, you might suspect, that's mostly for social studies teachers. And that's true. But in our experiences, we get a lot of applicants from other disciplines, English, because in today's schools, so much of what we teach is interdisciplinary. So there's not this hard line between subject areas. So we offer multi-day professional development experiences where we pay for everything. So it's all expenses paid for the teachers. We do the Texas Revolution road trip where we take them from the Alamo to Goliad, sort of walking all the way to San Jacinto, walking what happened after the Battle of the Alamo. We also take them, this is our second year. We've done 5 days of PD in Mexico City to really understand the intersection between Mexican history and Texas history. And so we have a bold mission to really try to serve our teachers. In addition to those experiences, offering free curriculum materials and classroom activities on our website that can help support better instruction in the classroom.
And teachers have to apply, and that's through the Alamo Trust.
Yes, okay. They apply, and we go through a pretty rigorous application process. But ultimately, when our new education center is in place, our goal is to serve as many teachers as we can each and every summer.
When is that expected to be done?
The education center opens March 6th of 2026.
Okay.
Which is the 190th anniversary of the battle.
Oh my gosh.
So it's fast and furious to get that done.
Yes. I still find a lot of residents in San Antonio don't know about the Alamo Plan, as we call it. It's essentially a $550 million redevelopment effort, largely funded by the state of Texas. So $400 million during the last legislative session and another appropriation this spring. And so I think there's a strong, obviously, desire to preserve our history and to inspire future generations to want to study it, to understand it, so that we don't lose that part of our shared past. And so the plan includes things like the new education center, the collection center where we're sitting right now, a brand new Alamo Visitor Center and Museum opening in 2027.
Is that across the street?
It's across the street from the shrine, the
Right.
church that most people think of that is the Alamo. But one of the things we're trying to do through all of these efforts is to help folks understand the true footprint of the compound, which was once Mission San Antonio de Valero and then became known as the Alamo. But a lot of our visitors don't know that the Alamo was never intended to be a military fortification. It was built to be a Spanish mission. And it served that purpose in this location from 1724 to 1793.
Oh my gosh. How much did you have to study when you got the job?
I think one of the things that's really fun about this job is that I literally learn something new every day because there's so much richness to Texas history that there's no way that you can know it all. With the exception of Ernesto Rodriguez, who's our senior lecturer and historian, who's been at the Alamo for 25 years. He knows everything. But other than him, I think it's almost impossible to know because it's a really rich, complex story.
It's beautiful.
What are some of your biggest challenges in maintaining a historical landmark and having all these visitors come through?
Oh, that's a great question because we are not closed. I think sometimes people drive by or walk by and see the construction fences and think, oh, the Alamo is closed. We're not. There will be a point when we will be closed temporarily to replace the roof of the Alamo Church, which will be a massive undertaking. I think what is the biggest challenge? It's very complex, right? In that part of what we're doing is historic preservation. Part of it is new construction. Part of it is trying to make sure that the site remains strong for future generations. So there's just a lot of moving parts. The Alamo Plan itself is about a dozen different separate construction projects, and they're all different in nature. We've committed to preserve as much of the historic fabric across the Alamo as we can. So sometimes that includes an adaptive reuse of an existing structure like Alamo Hall or what we call the Crockett Block buildings. And you all know, given your business, that sometimes, like it or not, tearing things down and building from the ground up can be faster and cheaper. But that's not how you do things at the Alamo. In addition to that, from a regulatory perspective, everything that we do requires a permit for archaeology first from the Texas Historical Commission and then an architectural permit. So there's a process to that, which brings me to the second biggest challenge, which is there's a lot of people involved in this project. You've got part of the property owned by the city of San Antonio, part owned by the state of Texas via the Texas General Land Office. You've got the Historical Commission, and then you've just got a lot of citizens that are really passionate about Alamo and Alamo history. So there's no shortage of opinions about what should or should not be done here on the site. And I think that makes it complex because you have to be willing to listen and try to compromise where possible.
Do you have a board?
Two of them. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I have two boards. So we actually, the trust operates two nonprofit organizations. They're both 501c3s by tax designation. But the first, the Alamo Trust, is the organization that is contracted by the state of Texas to run the daily operations of the site and then to oversee this massive Alamo Plan. The second is the Remember the Alamo Foundation, and that is the group that is mostly responsible for fundraising. So even though most of our support has come from the state and some from the city and some from the county, so lots of public support, and I might mention this plan is the only one that's ever been advanced over the past 50 some odd years that has had support from all three entities. But in addition to that, we're raising $150 million privately. To be able to fund everything that we want to do. I think the leadership at the state has a desire that we're going to get this done in 2027. We're going to cut the ribbon, and then, it will be everything that we always imagined that it could be here at the Alamo.
On the donor side, are there opportunities are you looking for, I saw on the website, like buy a brick or whatever. So just all levels.
Yes. So we've raised about $90 million.
Legacy giving.
Yes. So a lot of the larger gifts have come from private individuals. Texas-based foundations. Some national foundations like Hearst and Ford have supported the project. Those that are interested in historic preservation. Believe it or not, the Alamo is one of the last big, well-known historic sites in the United States that has not gone through a transformation like this.
Really?
So if you think most of them are, or many of them are under the purview of the National Park Service.
Right.
And at some point over the mostly 20th century, they would have constructed a new visitor center museum, would have, made improvements. So if you think about, if you've been to Mount Vernon or Monticello or Gettysburg or any of those, that there's always a lot to the experience. The Alamo never had that because we're different. We're not under a national entity like that. And there's been a lack of agreement and consensus about what should be done.
What were the right steps to have it be preserved and serve the city and serve people nationally?
One of our goals with this effort is that local residents come back to the Alamo.
Mm-hmm.
You all know that sometimes as residents of San Antonio, you only come here if you have someone in from out of town and they make you come.
Yeah,
right.
We want the people of San Antonio. This literally, I love it when people come and they ask me, why did they put it downtown? Which is just such a funny question because literally the Alamo was here first. And then the community literally grew around the Alamo. This was the first of the Spanish missions established in San Antonio. So it's the oldest. And a lot of people just don't understand that. So, we hope to give people a reason to come back. If you've not been, we have membership now, like most museums do.
Right.
We'll have this beautiful new museum, 160,000 square feet, 8 galleries, lots of interactive and digital displays, for people of all ages. But this building where we're sitting right now will also become a space for temporary exhibitions. So once the new museum opens, this space will house other shows that we might curate ourselves. They could be focused on history or even Western art or a broad range of topics. So we hope to keep giving people a reason to come back and explore.
And I think you all have like a high percentage of artifacts to be displayed not here, right? You don't have the space.
That's correct. That is correct.
I did the tour with my family who was in from out of town. Yeah. It was a high percentage that this was not housing because you were waiting for the big museum to be ready.
Yeah. So this building is 24,000 square feet in total. A lot of that is back of house because it has a state-of-the-art vault where we can house the collection. Okay. So part of growing the collection, the first step was to have a place to put it where we had the appropriate temperature and humidity control and all of those good things. So this has 10,000 square feet of exhibition space. The new museum has 4 times that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I see amazing artifacts. Tell me, how do you get all these artifacts?
Several different ways. So one of the exciting things, now that this plan is finally progressing and people see that it's happening, we have had a number of collectors come forward and they really want their objects to be on display at the Alamo. The first of all those, and probably the most well-known, was Phil Collins, the famous rock star, who donated his collection to the state of Texas several years ago. Probably a decade ago now. And we have a number of those objects on display, but that's not the only one. We've acquired some through purchase, some have been donated, some are on long-term loan, like this that's Santa Anna's uniform. That's on a long-term loan from a gentleman up in Dallas. But you find, because there's never been an institution like the Alamo collecting, Texas Rev in particular, a lot of these are housed in private collections. So we'll get a call from someone who says, I have this painting of Amos Pollard, who was the only physician in the walls of the Alamo in 1836. And it's in my grandmother's bedroom. Would you all like it? So it's just funny. Another funny one, David Zucker. So I'm of an age where, I went to school in the 80s and so forth. So all of those crazy Leslie Nielsen movies, Airplane and Naked Gun and all that. He's a huge Alamo collector. The producer, David Zucker, the Zucker brothers. And so he's actually donating his collection. He had the last letter that Crockett wrote to his brother-in-law before he left Tennessee for Texas his collection.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And all of this, it helps people currently to make more informed decisions for the future. I feel like
Absolutely.
understanding the history, what this has been through, the relationship with Mexico, I mean, all of it. And it's now you've consolidated that here.
Yeah, I think in San Antonio, we all appreciate the diverse culture that we have. We love the food, we love the attire, the decorations. It's a very vibrant city.
Right.
But sometimes we forget where that all came from. And it was this confluence of cultures, partly Spanish, partly Mexican, partly, these renegades from America who came to, these hard-scrabble folks who came to make a new life here. And that all is part of the Texas DNA. People come from other places and they think, like, these Texans, they're just different. Our tagline used to be, it's a whole other country, right? And it once was for almost 10 years. It was its own country. But that sort of the crux of the Texas identity, it really started here at the Alamo. It really did. This fierce independence, a willingness to, fight for what you believe in, literally to the death, a desire to have freedom at any cost. A lot of those things are still alive and well in Texas today. We still don't like people telling us what to do.
I think what you said, it's in our DNA.
If you could have every Texan know one new thing about the Alamo in the next 5 years, what would it be?
Oh gosh. There's so many things. I think first and foremost, just to understand that it was originally constructed as a Spanish mission.
Okay, yeah.
That was its original purpose. Structurally, one of the things we want people to know is that in 1836, during the time of the battle, it didn't have a roof. So this famous shape that we call ourselves the Alamo City, everything in San Antonio is called Alamo this, Alamo that. This famous parapet was not even there. It wasn't even a part of the original structure. It was actually added by the Army Corps of Engineers during the Army Quartermaster era in the mid 1850s. So just to understand that, I guess the biggest takeaway is if you think you know the story of the Alamo, maybe you ought to think again.
Okay.
Come visit.
Yeah.
Take a tour.
Maybe you ought to check it out.
So that's the roof you're going to replace? I mean, the one that was put in by the Army Corps?
So the Army actually put in the first roof was actually a wooden gabled roof. It was a pitched roof. And they added the parapet because they thought the roof was ugly. But it was it was a depot during that time. So they used the Alamo to move goods to the west. And so they added a second story. It was used to store things. Right. To move them. And so they added this very practical roof and then added the parapet so that you couldn't see it. The current roof was put on in the 1920s by the Daughters of the Republic of Texas, who were the stewards of the site for more than 100 years. And so it's a thin shell concrete, barrel vaulted roof of the shape that would have been common to Spanish missions at that time, but made with a modern material. And so that's what we intend to replace. It's been on there for 104 years. It's done a very good job. However, materials change, construction techniques change. The church needs a better drainage system to move water away from the structure. So that's a big reason for the roof replacement.
Got it. We talk to our clients about that a lot, about drainage. Get that water away from your foundation.
Literally, especially
at all costs.
Especially here, right?
Yes.
Where we have such hard water.
Yes.
You want to move water away. And so both the church and the Long Barrack are getting new roofs and new drainage systems. And to your point, it's just like your house. You wouldn't, after 104 years, you would expect to have to replace the roof of your home. I agree.
That's quite a great roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is one of your most rewarding parts of being the CEO of the Alamo Trust?
Well, there's two. The first and foremost is the team that we've assembled. So, because we're in the midst of this big transformation, we literally got to build the team. And so we have a remarkable, very talented, very committed group of people who are working together to make all of this happen. And that's just fun. I sometimes reflect that you don't get that many times in your career where you're at this moment where you have these resources and you have these amazing people around you. And, sometimes you have to just stop and appreciate that is where you are. The second thing for me personally is I did not know when I came to this job, I'd never done much research on my own lineage or genealogy, that I'm actually a descendant of one of the original Canary Island families that settled San Antonio. And I would have never known that had I not come to the Alamo.
Oh, that's
that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you have a picture somewhere?
No. We do have that picture you mentioned is on the wall.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
My team did that as a joke. So we have all these famous people who made the pilgrimage to visit the Alamo.
And yours,
it's like the Pope, multiple presidents, King Charles now, and, his mother before that, and me, and my sister.
I think when I was here, I did not know that was you, because I remember that wall's incredible. That was a good touch.
I love to, and we will have an expanded version of that in the new museum, but I love to stand back and someone will say, "Who's that little girl?"
She's very famous.
It's actually no one important.
I have a question. So I also saw that you, in your LinkedIn profile, you're making waves. Did you do a podcast with them?
I did a book.
A book?
Yes,
Okay.
It was a book that they did about people who.
So I'm curious about that. Professional wave maker.
Yeah. I think that throughout my career, I've had a boss one time tell me, I don't think that you actually think that anything is impossible. And that's probably true, sometimes to a fault, right? So, even though it might be possible, it might not be possible right now. And so I think that's part of it. And then it suited me well in this role because there's a lot of conflict in this role. There's, sometimes very strong opinions as it relates to the content of the new museum, to the design, to just many aspects. And so I live in a place of conflict a lot, and that doesn't make me uncomfortable. But for a lot of people, that would be really uncomfortable.
So what did you do on the book, on the wave maker?
They just interviewed me. Yeah. There was a series of people that they interviewed. Someone who used to work with me at HEB said, well, I can think of one person who makes wave. That was me. I think they meant it in a nice way. Yeah. I'm not sure.
And then you left HEB, and that's when you went to get your doctorate degree?
Yeah, so it was kind of a simultaneous thing. I left and I went to go work, and I was the founding president at the Holsworth Center in Austin, working for Charles Butt, worked for his foundation for a minute. And that experience really inspired me to want to go back and get a terminal degree, because I was surrounded by people who had them, and I love to learn. And my kids thought I'd lost my mind. Like, why would you go to school if you don't have to? But it was a great adventure because I chose a program at the University of Southern California, and I chose it because it really focused on global education, global comparative studies and practices. And so it incorporated travel to places like Johannesburg and Sao Paulo and Helsinki and Singapore to learn about their education systems. And for me, that was just great. And it was a cohort model. So it was a group of us going through this experience together, about 20 of us. We became great friends through that experience. And so it was wonderful. But it was interesting because simultaneously, I was in the program coming out of COVID and sort of questioning, what do I want to do with my life? Thinking about what's going to be the topic of my dissertation and really wrestling with that. And I was having a hard time picking. Got this call to come work here. And there were two things that inspired me to come here. One was the board. We have a phenomenal board. The second was, I said, well, if I'm going to work at the Alamo, I probably should go down there. I haven't been there in years. Like, do you have an office? Where do you park if you work at the Alamo? And so I had all these questions, and just walking around the grounds, you could just see this could be really spectacular. Maybe it wasn't then, but it could be.
Right.
And that was kind of what sealed the deal. And so those things were all happening at the same time. And I ended up picking my topic, which was the role of U.S. historic sites and museums in supporting social studies instruction in K-12 classrooms. And, so it was like so fortuitous that became my topic. And I was working here and studying at other sites and learning from them and learning from other museums. And so it was just a wonderful opportunity.
Have any of your kids decided to pursue education or talk about pursuing?
Oh gosh, no. I have two boys, one who is 20 and one who's 17. And the 17-year-old has a better sense of what he thinks he might want to do. He's interested in design and architecture and those sorts of things. The older one, unfortunately, has no idea what he wants to do.
They're just kids. They're figured out.
Yes.
Young adults, yes.
But I don't see either one of them pursuing
Education.
Yeah.
And you have your bachelor's from TCU?
I do.
And then did you get a master's degree from a different school?
From LBJ school.
From
at
LBJ,
UT.
that's right. Okay. So you made the rounds.
I know. I have no
But
loyalty.
you have a great background for this to be here.
It's been, I do think it's been a role that has been well suited to a very strange path or an unusual path.
A wave maker. The wave maker.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what makes everything, the fabric of all of your experiences to come make it beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what I try and tell my kids too, who don't know what they're going to do. It's like, just do something.
Yes.
And the something will evolve into more, but you have to start somewhere.
You do.
Not worry about it.
And don't be afraid when opportunity knocks on your door. Even, when I first came to the Alamo, I went to my very first city council meeting. We were asking for, I'd only been here about a month. We were asking for an extension on the lease, the ground lease that exists between the state and the city that includes Alamo Plaza. And a very famous former county judge, who shall not be named, said, "I cannot believe you took that job." And I said, well, interesting. But, here I am 4 years later, and it's actually been a great ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're happy as local San Antonio people to have you in the helm here for the Alamo Trust and doing what you're doing. It has been my experience, and the coming here has been amazing. So
thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming down. I hope you'll come back. And even when you don't have family.
Yes, even when we don't have family in town.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.